Good morning. I hope you can see my presentation, or you should see. Okay. Good morning once more, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and to present the Pentecost project that was already presented in short by Sister Jane. So without knowing that Sister Jane had quoted the same sentence, I chose the sentence from Pope Leo's message for the 60th World Day of Social Communications because when I read it the first time, I said, okay, this is the sentence that could explain very well the intention behind this project that we have. We need faces and voices to speak for people again. Why? Because the current media environment is flooded with AI-generated content. It's flooded with hyper-production of content, misinformation, disinformation, all leading to news avoidance and growing distrust in media, a lack of stories. We live in a time where we have crisis of narration, crisis of the lack of stories. Human stories that unites us around what bounds us together rather than what separates us. We need inspirational, educational stories that underline our shared humanity, that show us what our common ground is. And to tell the human stories, you need to know the human stories. And that's why we would need a very good investigative journalism on someone who really knows people well. And those stories are in the hands, in the hearts and minds of Catholic sisters. But to understand why is it even important to talk about the communication of Catholic sisters and why is it important to work on it, we first need to look at two realities. So first is the representation of Catholic sisters, how are they seen in the mainstream media, and the self-presentation of Catholic sisters. And the truth is that neither of these two works well. Why? Because the public narrative about Catholic sisters is still largely trapped within entertainment. Mainstream media, in many ways, has handed over the story of sisters to popular culture. So films such as Sisters Act or horrors as The Nun had shaped the collective imagination and has shaped the image of Catholic sisters. Media coverage often focuses on what is entertaining, as Sister Jane already said, unusual stories, scandals, conflicts, or more recently, sisters influencers. So we have most of recent stories which are hybrid. So what becomes viral in social media gets covered by the mainstream media. And only occasionally you can find a story about what sisters really do and the extraordinary work that they do all over the world. And what about our self-presentation? So unfortunately, we sisters often reproduce the same pattern. So the most viral accounts of Catholic sisters frequently show the same entertaining discourse. So we have millions of people who have seen dances and songs and games of Catholic sisters. And there's nothing inherently wrong with playing or singing, but if this becomes the dominant narrative, we have a problem. And we should ask ourselves important questions. And that is, why are we afraid to show our real life the way it really is? And do we selves believe how rich our life really is and that it can truly make a change if we communicate it the way it is? Catholic sisters are the pillars of Catholic Church, and they're the pillars of society itself. I think only in Rwanda there's about 4,000, if I'm right, Sister Jane? 4,000 Catholic sisters in Rwanda. Yep. If sisters stopped working for just 24 hours, many communities in the world would experience a serious social and spiritual crisis. In terms of stories and experiences that can be told, let's imagine what happens in just 24 hours in a single congregation in the world. So we have sisters working in hospitals, working in hospices, accompanying people in their final hours. We have sisters teaching in schools and universities, some working in urban slums, some educate fathers in remote villages on parenting, others accompany migrants and refugees, others work every day to prevent human trafficking, some collaborate with governments and international institutions, some advocate for human dignity all the way to United Nations. Sisters are everywhere, and I would dare to say that religious life represents one of the most extraordinary human networks in the world. And what do these sisters hear? What comes to them in 24 hours in just one congregation? Well, they hear the deepest questions that humanity asks, and they accompany them in finding those answers. And this is what the church had done since it became. They hear questions about life, forming a family, education, how to discover one's vocation, questions about how to build healthy families, how to build a strong community, questions of elderly, their caregivers, sick and their families. They hear stories of persecution, migration, addiction, reconciliation, loneliness, and hope. They accompany people searching for meaning, searching for freedom, facing hard decisions, mourning losses, and rebuilding their lives. And imagine the conversation that these women experience every day. And imagine the experiences one congregation has just in one day. Sisters have direct access to the real questions of humanity. And together as a global community and part of the church, they also carry an extraordinary wealth of experience in responding to those questions. We have incredible theologians, doctors, nurses, professors. Now imagine unique perspective that sisters have. For a sister, a refugee is not a distant news story. It is someone she accompanies until they stand on their own 2 feet and knows all about why they left, how's their family back home, how was the path, what are their dreams, what are their fears, and she knows how to help them in a practical way. The margins are not somewhere far away. They are in the center of life of every Catholic sister. And this gives sister a perspective that is profoundly different from anything you're going to read in the mainstream media. And we cannot reduce this reality to communicating dances. We cannot reduce it to a decorative role in the church. And we cannot decide to keep these stories for our own personal memory. Communicating reality that we live is not secondary to our mission, it is a central part of our mission. And above all, we communicate because we want to tell the story of God's love for the world. And that is exactly the vision behind this project. Not simply to teach the sisters about communication, but to help the church to discover the immense wealth that it already possesses in the Catholic sisters. Because when sisters begin to tell their stories, they do not only change the perception of religious life, they're changing the perception of margins. They're shifting the dominant narratives that often are the cause of marginalization, because without language, no one will move from the margins. They change perception of the church. They inspire. They are bringing something new and good into the media environment. And they offer the world something that it desperately needs, a perspective born from experience of self-giving and proximity to others. This project has 3 pillars. It consists in training and learning by doing. So in Vatican Media, every week we publish a story which is written by Catholic sisters and translated in 10 different languages. And we train sisters in communications, in online courses, and by providing 3 months internships in Vatican Media. And also every sister has a free subscription to L'Osservatore Romano, which is daily newspaper of the Vatican. So what we learned in these years with the project is that we understood that for creating a network of sisters, communicators, networking is extremely important. So putting together the sisters who meet in person and collaborate, connect them across congregations, across nations and cultures. And in different events and training, we connect them also to experts from different types of backgrounds to create conditions to collaborate with sisters. We understood that also formation needs to be super, super high quality, and that we need to provide a storytelling platform that will make possible that even hyper-local stories from every corner of the world can reach the global news site. And first few words about networking. So as you see, we like putting sisters together. This was during last year's Jubilee for Communications, where we gathered sisters who are active in communications and experts from all around the world to discuss about communications. We have heard incredible stories from sisters and what they do. Like Sister Norma, who works with migrants, especially with children in Mexican-US border, Sister Rosemary, who's literally saving the lives of young girls. Sister gather in events we organize. They gather for online webinars, for trainings. They listen to really high recognized experts from all around the world. We have here Sister Abby meeting Maria Ressa, Nobel Prize winning journalist from the Philippines. And even these days, we have gathered different sisters here and put together a media team. So they're here in the first row covering this event for the Vatican media with videos and articles and creating social media content. So trainings are fundamental for our project. Every year we have 3 months online trainings, and hundreds of sisters have been through the trainings. Every training course has about 100 sisters participants with all the parts of the world present. They're trained by renowned media professionals and professors, and they were trained in social media management, participatory journalism, institutional communication, and much more. So they learn how to write journalistic pieces, but what we focused on last 2 years is participatory journalism. So not to write about what we do, but to write about the margins while co-producing with the margins. So to give the stage to the marginalized communities to tell their stories with their own words and to be presented the way they want to be presented in the global media. And during the training, they usually work in groups, so they get to know each other, and that is how they create connections all over the continents. We now have over 260 alumni of the project. And this is the Padlet map of our last training course. So these are the places where sisters came from. So they were everywhere, from Siberia to Brazil to many African countries. And I wanted to show some feedbacks that we got. First, which I think is very important, one that we got from a sister who's in charge for institutional communication of her congregation. We understood that there's many sisters who get the roles to communicate for their congregations, but they feel as if they don't have enough tools to do it. They don't have enough support. So we always make sure that in trainings we cover basics of communication, strategic communication, institutional part of communication. So they feel empowered when they communicate on behalf of their congregation. And the second feedback is from Chris, and Chris was one of our teachers. In Training Sisters, we work with very broad spectrum of experts, journalists, filmmakers from all types of backgrounds. And in teaching participatory journalism, we collaborate with a London-based media company that produces documentaries for big media outlets as BBC, and they're really passionate about documentaries about human trafficking. So it's been really super enthusiastic when they got to meet each other, and they understood for the first time that there was a network of sisters all around the world in more than 100 countries working in preventing human trafficking. So in these types of collaboration, in bringing people from different environments, experts from different environments, we see that it's a win-win situation, because not only that the sisters learn, but media learn, filmmakers learn. They all have something to learn and collaborate in communications. And we recently received this mail, which I think talks a lot about the project. So it is a mail by a sister who was our participant in our program. And she says, I want to thank you for your work in organizing and conducting our course. It was very important and useful time for me. I have a degree in journalism, but this course revealed a different ideal of journalism for me. I saw the ideal of journalism which I wanted to strive for in my service in the church and in my congregation. It was very important for me to hear the words that through journalism you can show the action of God's mercy in the world. Those words touch my soul deeply. As you guess, journalism in my country is far from the ideal. For the past few years, journalism in my country has served a dictatorship. She comes from a really complicated political situation. Most of the journalism here is propaganda of violence. I want to be another voice in this noise of propaganda. Your words and examples really straightened me, thank you. I also want to share my joy with you. Our meeting at Pentecost Project inspired me to start a journalistic project in our diocese. I prepared, with the help of another sister, the first issue of magazine for sisters from our diocese. The first issue of the magazine was released a month ago digitally. Our course was an inspiration for me to realize this project. So this is something that we did not see for the first time. It's a reawakening of the passion to communicate, to create videos, movies, articles. And it's not the first time that we see other projects being born as a product of this project. And there's been numerous initiatives in congregations and by different sisters. So as I said, we have 3 months internship in the Vatican Media. Every year we choose 12 best candidates from the online course, and they come and stay at the Vatican Media. So during the internship, they work in their language section. Since we operate in more than 50 languages, they can work in all of these languages. They're working with the journalists of Vatican News, learning how to be in the newsroom, how to write up articles, how to conduct interviews, how to create multimedia content, and they see all the technological part of the production. And as I said, they create very valuable connections in the group and friendships and find partners to collaborate. These are just some of the stories that we have published recently. So we have diverse stories as advocate from Kenya, sisters who are working in health sector, sisters who are empowering Maasai girls, sisters who work with refugees, who work with fishers, incredible stories about Sister Rosemary in Uganda, sisters in Malawi, sisters who are opening schools in Kenya, sisters who serve in South Sudan, which is very important for us because in this diversity, a very special type of stories comes from sisters who are in war zones because they're active, and sisters decide to remain with the people during the war. So stories that we get from Ukraine and different war zones from Middle East from sisters are very exceptional because they have a perspective that, as I said, you cannot read in any other media. And besides the war zones, there are also sisters in catastrophes and crises all around the world, like now in earthquakes in Venezuela. Floods, earthquakes, they remain, whatever happens, they remain, and they can communicate what is really happening with the people there. How can we help? How can we prevent? They have enormous treasure of knowledge that they can share. And these stories are read in millions of readers, and they keep on growing, which shows us that these stories are very attractive, and we need to invest more in training of sisters, journalists and professional communicators and experts who can, with this particular sensitivity to religious life, report what our sisters are doing in every corner of the world. There are so many stories, so it would be very hard to mention all of them. But what we saw is that these stories are mobilizing because only with voices and faces we can truly communicate God's love, and we can create relationships. mobilizing instance when we publish something about sisters, we, or people who wrote it, get messages from different parts of the world of people who want to help. So there was one written by Sister Michelle, who is here, about a water pump missing. I think it was in Kenya, and a couple of weeks later they got a water pump. So we really see how these stories change hearts and mobilize people all around the world. So with this project, we're going towards long-term systematic changes, and we're trying to empower sisters to change the narrative and perceptions about the marginalized communities, but also about the Catholic sisters. We train them to start changes in the marginalized communities that they can then help with communication, because as I said, without communication, without changing the language, no one can get out from the margins. We are striving to provide the global platform so we can increase the influence and amplify the social change in narrative shifting movements. We are raising awareness to train sisters, so to position sisters as highly skilled experts and professionals in civil society and media environment, because there's no reason why sisters would not be interlocutors for any serious institution and media in the world, because they're absolutely everywhere. We're training them and connecting them to enhance the levels of collaboration with other church and civil and media organizations. And we're looking forward to increasing the numbers of sisters as representatives in leading and change-making positions in the church and civil society, because they really did deserve that. Thank you.
How I wish we would spend the whole day listening to our sisters. Are they not doing such a wonderful job?